plan is forming.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. And this one's gonna be interesting. You see, I've been celebrating Michael Keaton's big return to the role of Batman for the first time in 3 decades by digging deep into that Batman 1989 lore. Now I know what you're thinking, V. There's only 2 movies. Really, you're in the shallow end of this Batman pool. But oh, how wrong you are. Because only on the surface level is it the first 2 Batman movies. There's much more to this iceberg that we're not really seeing. And that's why today, we're going to be talking about one of those many Batman 89 adjacent projects. You'll understand what I mean by that in just a second. It's a comic that was written by none other than Batman Returns actor, Danny Devito. That's right, we now have a Batman comic written by the Penguin. Now, the reason I call this comic Batman 89 adjacent isn't only for the fact that one of those movies' actors wrote it, but because the characters' designs and characterizations, to some degree, again, we'll get there, are clearly heavily inspired by that set of films. I think a lot of this simply just has to do with the fact that that's probably the only real reference Danny DeVito has for these characters. At least that's the way it seems in interviews with him. But maybe he does know these characters incredibly well and just has a fondness for what he was a part of, which is totally valid. You know, I don't think that they would hire Danny DeVito, the Penguin from Batman Returns, to come in and write a story for Colin Farrell, the Penguin from The Batman. So there's some validity in him reusing what he was once a part of. As a matter of fact, I would say that that was probably the company's design. DC released an anniversary special celebrating the villains of Gotham City. A special entitled Gotham City Villains. What better way to celebrate beloved villains than by asking one to pen their own story? This was also coming out during a time where we didn't have a lot to look forward to. This was mid-pandemic. So any kind of creative news was a beacon of hope in a sea of darkness. Hearing Danny DeVito would be writing his own Penguin story, that was one of the few things I had to look forward to. And now, after finally having read it, I'm really glad I didn't read it during the pandemic, because I would have felt fairly hopeless. Did I mention the pandemic enough? Because I'm going to continue to. It has a part to play in this story. As a matter of fact, surprisingly, it's pretty integral. Now, the name of this story is Bird Cat Love. And right there, I want to stop you. I'm going to let you know it's exactly what you think it is. That is, if you thought it was a love story between the Penguin and Catwoman. A pairing that nobody, besides Danny DeVito apparently, had ever asked for. Now, this story sucks. Like, it's bad. It's brutal. It's pretty bad. Terrible. Awful. Horrendous. So I'm gonna be clowning on Matilda's dad quite a bit throughout this video, but I need to make it clear right here and now. I still love Danny DeVito as the Penguin in Batman Returns, and I still love the Penguin in Batman Returns in real life as Danny DeVito. Nothing could ever take away from that, no matter how hard he tries. When asked to tell his own Penguin story, he opted to pair the character with Catwoman, though that wasn't a decision that he took lightly, as he actually went to Michelle Pfeiffer first to get her permission to tell such a story, going out of his way to call her up and exclaim, "Look, it's my fantasy, and it's my dream come true to have an incredible romance with such a beautiful woman." Oswald, I'm talking about. And Selena, she was very excited to hear about it.
Okay, bye, sexy.
Now, I know my Danny DeVito voice really is just a generic Italian father voice, but that's the best I could do for you, so we're just gonna have to move on. Look, I'm sure Daniel DeVito was just being a gentleman about this whole ordeal. And you know, there's something rather sweet about his wording and him going out of his way to make sure that he had consent to do such. However, I'd like to point out that Michelle Pfeiffer is not, in fact, Catwoman, so he didn't really need to ask her for her permission. The fact that he's asking for it kind of makes it seem like he specifically had himself romancing her in mind when writing the story. Again, look, I'm sure this was just done through good intentions and done out of a need to make sure he's not somewhat making someone uncomfortable. But from my perspective, I would think it'd be less uncomfortable if you just told your story and didn't equate these fictional characters to real-life people. That's when it gets kinda, you know? It didn't have to be awkward, Danny. It is now, but it didn't have to be. That being said, I'm gonna try to take real-life stuff out of this review until it's absolutely inevitable. Which it will be very shortly, so bear with me. It's certainly a bold choice to pair these two up together. It's not entirely unwarranted, I guess. I mean, there's merit to at least one half of the attraction. In Batman Returns, it's very obvious the Penguin is attracted to Catwoman. He takes the time to tell her so in several passes he makes throughout the movie's runtime. And he doesn't seem to take the hint. It's just as obvious that Selina is grossed out by the thought of him. She teams with him to serve her own means, but she doesn't exactly hide her feelings toward him and his ghastly self. But this comic asks, what if Selina wasn't completely repulsed by the mutated short-tempered penguin man with fish breath and bad teeth, and instead was super into him? These two aren't just an item, they are hopelessly in love with each other. Completely crazed over the idea of the other. They're just constantly committing crimes and swapping spit. A total undesirable duo. Now, I have many issues with this. First off, ew. Secondly, ew. But thirdly, this seems so far off the mark for Catwoman. Even if I tried to come around to the idea of Selina and Oswald having a thing, which, by the way, I would never, the fact that she is so intense in her devotion to the supposed villain feels all the more off. Catwoman loved Batman, sure, but she wasn't just madly in love with him from the get-go. There's a steady progression throughout the years. It starts with flirtation and back and forth banter. Then it slowly transforms into something much deeper as these two get to know each other. The passing of time only makes their bond stronger. Learning where they compare, how they contrast, what brings them together, what could potentially split them apart. There is a deep and meaningful connection there, even if it isn't exactly traditional. And yet, if I saw Catwoman slobbering all over Batman like this, even then I might think it's a little bit too much. It's excessive. This feels less like a plot point in a comic book, and more like an excerpt out of this man's autobiography. Yeah, you just let me know when I could pick up Danny DeVito in Erotic Life. Now, even outside this odd couple, the two aren't really depicted the way that you might imagine. They may look like the characters from the Tim Burton Batman movies, but they certainly don't act like the characters from the Tim Burton Batman movies. Essentially, these sudden star-crossed lovers are the Bonnie and Clyde of their time, but they're seeing out heists for the greater good. That's right, these bad guys are now doing bad things for a good cause. We're going into full-on anti-hero territory here. It's a weird route to go with the character, but it doesn't surprise me as it's being written by someone who is clearly putting themselves in that character's shoes. Everyone is the hero of their own story, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. We're going against the grain, we're going against logic and reasoning, and we're turning the Penguin into a hero because the guy who played him is writing the story. This is without question, whether intentional or not, whether by design or mistake, this is a self-insert fantasy. The book isn't very dialogue-heavy. A lot of the story is told through panel-to-panel action with the occasional narration box to help us through, but quite frankly, the narration boxes don't do a lot to help. As a matter of fact, I had to read the story, which was only a couple of pages long. I had to read the story multiple times, just so I could try to understand and figure out if what I read was accurate, if I was having like a brain malfunction. But even now, it's not entirely clear. The final 2 or 3 pages of the book are just, well, they're kind of nonsense. It seems like somebody was rushing through a story because there was a deadline, which is what happened. I think what's most clear here is that Danny DeVito didn't really have a story to tell. DC approached him and was like, hey, you played the part, you're kind of a big part of DC lore, while we still have you here, and by here I mean on this earth, why don't you write a Batman story? And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that, except I will make it about me, and I'm the Penguin, and Batman will be an A-panel. And they're like, sold! Like I said, it just doesn't feel like it has a story to tell. It feels like this was a story that was made out of obligation, and because of that, it doesn't really hit the mark. As a matter of fact, it misses it by a country mile. I don't know if a lot of this was left intentionally vague for the big reveal, or it's just badly written. But I'm gonna go with both. But let me tell you, this big reveal, it's something. It's something. The comic has shown these two madly in love madmen chasing crime. But what we're unaware of was that there was a method to their madness. This was all part of some grand scheme. Hold on to your top hats, gentlemen. We're about to take the crazy up to 11. The real game plan here was for Penguin and Catwoman to steal coronavirus vaccines. No need to rewind, you did not mishear me. Danny DeVito and not Michelle Pfeiffer stole the cure to COVID. And what is it they do with it? Do they hold this vaccine over the world's head? Do they demand society pay them off for their medications? Or are they anti-vax? They just not want anybody to have them? Well, no, none of the above. You see, they want to distribute the vaccines themselves by launching them into the planet and allowing the planet to naturally distribute the cure. I think, again, it is not clear. Like, I know what I just said sounds dumb, but it's the only thing that I can think they meant by this page. This is actually me trying to make it sound smarter than it actually is, which is very challenging to me because I myself am very stupid. So if you're listening, if you're watching this right now, and you think that you can translate the inner machinations of the mind of a 78-year-old man who's acting out his savior fantasy and catgirl kink all on the same page, you feel free to let me know what's actually going on in the comment section below. Please, I would like to know. I've read this book several times, and I still don't know. Until then, the Penguin and Catwoman are saving the world with a COVID-curing bomb. Take that, propaganda. Because, you know, that's allegedly why they're doing this. They're anti-propaganda and greed. That's why they stole all the world's vaccines. Yeah, you know the Penguin, that rich socialite who has political aspirations? The corrupt official? Very anti-greed. Hates money. Strangely enough, Penguin also goes on TV to announce that healthcare workers are also going to be handsomely rewarded if they distribute the cure. And weren't they doing that already? Didn't you essentially stop them from doing that by stealing the vaccines? How are they going to get the vaccines now if you're the one that has them? How would you be able to get them to them without being arrested? Wouldn't you be stopped and apprehended almost immediately? I mean, you could send your men to do it, but then they'll be taken. What was your plan? Why did you do this? Your motivations are just, they don't make sense. I don't even know if you had any. Why do healthcare workers need to give the vaccine if you just drop the V-bomb on everybody? And, okay, just thinking about this now, why would anyone willingly take anything that was administered by actual villains? Why would anyone believe you're willing to help when all you've ever done is hurt? There's so much context, left on the cutting room floor. Why are Penguin and Catwoman together? What started this relationship? Why are they both good guys? Why are they stealing vaccines? Where is Batman? What is his relationship with Catwoman? How does he feel about this pairing? I don't know the answer to any of these things, and you know what? I don't think Danny DeVito does either. Batman shows up for all of one panel where he simply says, "Oh wow, since they saved the world, they've certainly been quiet." And that's it. And then they give us this panel, and we see an entire Bat family sitting around to read the paper, and there's two Robins there, which I can only guess is supposed to be Tim and Damian, because in the back is Red Hood and over there is Nightwing. But why? Why are there two Robins? One of them should be Red Robin, no? There is no rhyme and reason to any of this. No story beat explaining why Penguin and Catwoman are playing the role of faces when they're traditionally heels. There's just so much to this that just doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, there is much more about this comic that doesn't make sense in comparison to the very little that does make sense. Like, if I was to sit down and make a list of the two of them, my list of what makes sense in this would begin and end with, I understood what it was the characters were saying. And there would be an asterisk next to that statement, and it would say, not all the time. This is deeply upsetting. Don't look for answers in this, because they'll never come. They'll just lead you to more questions, which also do not have answers. Penguin and Catwoman save the world from COVID, then they disappear into the night like a demon's whisper, and that's it. Living together in hell and harmony in an enclosure full of exotic birds and a bunch of exotic big cats. Which is about as fundamentally flawed of an idea as having Penguin and Catwoman be together themselves, so that's right at home in this book. And that was the comic that Danny DeVito wrote. A comic that I really, really, really wish he didn't. I'm sorry this video is so short, but it's a short story written by a short man, reviewed by another short man, so come on, cut me some slack. But if you like this video and you want to see more comic content, let me know right now in the comment section below.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
With all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.